William Lawson, happy Christmas, and it's a very happy Christmas because you're confirmed as a Red Bull racing driver for 2025. It's got to be up there in terms of Christmas presents.
I think it's probably the best one I've had. Yeah, it's cool. I've never had an off season, to go into a new year. Every F1 chance I've got has been during the season. No time to really enjoy the moment. So this is very cool to go home to celebrate with my family and as you say, it's a pretty cool Christmas present.
Can you remember the first F1 related Christmas present you ever got?
I would say what I can remember, I know I had like F1 cars when I was very young, like when I was 3 or 4 years old, but the first proper memory would be the Formula 1 games. I used to get them every year at Christmas time. And the first one I got was 2010. It was the first proper F1 game from Codemasters, and actually it was the year that Vettel won the championship, so I always played as Mark Webber so I could verse Sebastian Vettel and drive the Red Bull car, and I was 8 years old when that game came out.
Yeah, okay. Well, listen, maybe talk a bit about your beginnings in a sec in motorsport, how you got here, but to get a potentially race-winning car in F1 is as good as it gets. Then I guess it's up to you to see what you do with it. What about getting it in your first full season in Formula 1? Are there pros and cons to that, or is there only an upside?
There's definitely pros and cons to that. I think that I think where my head's at, obviously I'm just looking at the pros, and for me it's super exciting, and I know it's going to be extremely tough. A lot of tracks I've never been to, but as you say, to be in a car that's just won the World Championship, it's, as a driver, that's extremely exciting, knowing that you're going into a competitive situation, but I'm fully aware of how tough it's going to be. But at the end of the day, I've also got the best in the world to compare to and learn from, and there's nobody better really to be able to, for me, I get access every single session, all the data, things like that I get to see. So, at the moment, I'm just excited.
Yeah. Have you a relationship with Max Verstappen already? That's who you were talking about. Has he been helpful to you in your time at Red Bull?
For sure. I think even probably without him realizing it, being in reserve for quite a few years, I started actually spending a lot more time with Red Bull Racing than VCARB. And as a reserve, I was watching all the sessions, listening to his debriefs, listening to his communication during the sessions, and just watching from in the background. So I spent a lot of time almost watching how he does it and seeing how his communication is with the team, his feedback, and then stepping in as a reserve last year in Zandvoort. Little things, giving me sort of little bits of advice, mostly on the mindset of how he goes about it. He's obviously a very relaxed guy outside of the car, and he manages to push away a lot of the pressure, I think. So for me, that was something to watch and learn from.
Yeah. Listen, you're not his first partner here. In fact, there's been a little bit of a turnover, can I put it in those terms. Have you any kind of theory why others have found it hard to be alongside him? Maybe adapt to the car which he has pushed in a certain way in terms of its characteristics?
Well, I've driven the car over the last couple of years and done tests, and I can say the car's very aggressive, and it takes a lot of confidence to drive it, honestly, and I think that's where Max is obviously extremely confident as a driver. But the main thing is he's the best in the world right now. So to go up against the best guy is always going to be very, very tough, and ultimately that's probably the main reason that anybody has struggled so far to go up against him.
Yeah. Do you think you've got this gig because of what you've shown on the mental side, and elite sport at this level is very much being able to cope? As you've alluded, you've been thrown in at times. You've had to be strong mentally and calm. Is that one of the reasons why you've been picked?
I don't fully know, but I'd like to think so. I think as a Red Bull junior in the first place, you're dealing with that pressure from a young age, and obviously I'll never forget the phone calls from Helmut at 6 a.m. As a 16-year-old kid, and basically that pressure of being a junior almost comes with the job, and in a way, I'm very thankful for it because it's basically obviously sculpted us as drivers to be ready for F1. I think if you don't have that and you had to step into F1, that would be extremely tough, and I couldn't imagine doing that now without what I've been through. So obviously it's a part of it, but I don't fully know. Yeah.
I mean, so you, in a sense, have to develop a bit of a thick skin because as we announce this, as you're announced today, there'll be those that say, "Oh, why wasn't it Yuki Tsunoda? Why wasn't it Carlos Sainz?" You can deal with that. That's easy to deal with.
The easiest thing is just not to read it, and I think that's what I've learned from being in my short time in F1. I think we spend all the years preparing to drive the cars, be physically fit enough to deal with the pressure, to deal with all of that. But one thing you probably don't prepare for is the outside, the people looking in and sort of the feedback from the world. Luckily, I've had a taste of it so far, and honestly, the best thing to do is not read it. And I know that it won't make everybody happy, but for me, it's an extremely exciting opportunity, and for me, I'm just focused on making the most of it.
Yeah, well, it's not your call at the end of the day. You've just got to get on with it. Listen, you kind of alluded to this. How much of a luxury will it be for you to have a full pre-season and to get in the car and know that there's a whole season ahead of you?
That's something that as you said, I've never had, and it's exciting. I don't really know what to do with myself, to be honest, because I've got so much time to think about it now. I almost just want to get straight into it. So, yeah, it's going to be important. It's how you use that time as well. Obviously, we'll start early. I'm sure in January already we'll be doing a lot of preparations. And honestly, it's just about making the most of it. Going into the Bahrain test, making the most of the time in the car. And then obviously going into the season. A few tracks that I've not done, but having the time to prepare for it properly, obviously it's on how you use that time, and we'll be trying to make the most of it. Yeah,
I mean, the kind of targets that were set to Checo Perez were to be close to Max. That was the aim. I mean, if this car again is capable of wins and fighting for the driver's title, would it be your own target to make sure that you can be contenders for the constructors as well? Is that a kind of baseline that you're looking at?
I mean, I would say yes, from a team perspective, and I would say what my job is as a driver coming into Red Bull Racing is to fight for that constructors. That's the main team goal. So obviously that's what I'm set out to try and do, and anyway, achieving the best results is going to achieve that. So for me, my focus is to do as well as possible. Obviously, my ultimate goal in Formula One is to win a world championship. Am I expected to come and do that straight away? No, but obviously that's where I'm trying to head to. And for me, I'll be trying to do the best job I can in supporting the team. And at this stage, I don't know how it's going to go, but I think from a team perspective, yes, the goal is to try and compete as close to Max as possible.
Okay. Well, just to put a full stop on your appointment, a word about Checo, and you've known each other for a few years as well. How much respect do you have for his contribution to Formula One, the way he's carried the flag for Mexico, amongst other things?
It's huge. I mean, honestly, it goes back to when I was a kid, and I remember watching. I remember watching a race that I think really was one of his big sort of putting him on the map was in Malaysia in the Sauber, and he was fighting with Fernando Alonso.
Yeah. We need this position.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember that race as a kid watching that, and obviously, so to be competing against these guys now, anyways, it's to put things into perspective. It's quite crazy, and I have a huge amount of respect for what he's done in the sport and what he's done for this team. So yeah, obviously it's in a way it's probably big shoes to fill, but obviously it's exciting.
Yeah, listen, a little bit about you, for those that don't know too much. Liam Lawson, I see that as a Scots name. Can we claim you? What do we know about the heritage?
I mean, I should know, so we need to find out. I'll go and check with my family, but for now we can say that yes, we can claim that.
Okay, fair enough. But a very proud Kiwi. To a degree, a bit controversial when you talked about McLaren the other week and their heritage, which, to be fair to them, they've tried to big up Bruce McLaren and what he did there. But is the Kiwi mentality in there? They have a very good way of adapting to sports, making the most of the resources, thinking outside the box. Is that something you tap into?
I think honestly to achieve a high level in any sport or any sort of industry that you choose from New Zealand, I feel like it's harder. From a small country, it's always harder. And yes, so from a young age, I think knowing how, I didn't personally know how unachievable Formula One was. I always was lucky that I just believed I could do it, and I was lucky that my family around me, gave me that support. But obviously, looking back, it is that bit harder.
You left school early, didn't you? You had to do all of that, come to Europe.
Exactly.
Et cetera.
I didn't really have much of a high school. I went for a couple of years, and then I left, and I remember being in F4 and having teammates that were doing schoolwork in between sessions, and for me at that point, we knew that the opportunity was so big, even at that age and at that level, that we had to just grab it with both hands. So I dropped everything else that I was doing and just focused on racing 100%. So I think you have to do that, especially when you come from a country like that. But motorsport in New Zealand is really popular, and Formula One and V8 supercars and championships close to home are very, very big as well. So growing up, and now seeing the support, especially in the last couple of years, has been really, really cool.
Yeah. Listen, you come from a family of normal means. That's fair. I read about, was it your dad in your sister's car doing practice starts?
Yeah.
That's that normal, really.
In a really old beat-up Polo,
Yeah.
and learning how to drive a manual and doing practice starts. It was my sister's car, and I was spinning up the wheels, and I think I fried the clutch as well, from memory. But yeah, it's it's something that's, although I don't come from a family with a lot of money, I was lucky that the mentality from my parents was, if you believe in something, you can do it, and they kept that belief in me all the way through, until I was old enough to sort of realize, what was going on.
Did you have to combat then richer kids in karting or etc. coming up?
100%, yeah. I was explaining before that actually the first 12 months of go-karts I finished solidly last every single time. I was just driving by myself at the back of the field, trying to convince my dad to get a better engine because I was convinced that it was bad, and finally he did, and we put it on for this qualifying session at this big event, and straight away we were at the front, and that was the moment that karting became serious. And for my parents, they sacrificed everything for me as a kid to race, even just go-karts, to compete at the front in New Zealand. It's still extremely expensive. My parents don't own a house right now because of me growing up karting and leaving home, and to my siblings, my whole family has given up a lot for me to do this.
Well, just finally then, you'll line up in Australia, one of, maybe 6 in your first full season. Is that a help at all? Are you backing yourself to come out on top in that little group, or how will you spark off each other?
I think it's going to be tough. Melbourne's a track that I've not done before, so it's going to be a learning curve for sure. So yeah, for me, it's similar to, it's going to be the same approach that I've had in these couple of races that I've done this year and last year, and making the most of the sessions that we have leading up to the weekends, making the most of the pre-season prep, the prep before the races, and basically trying to be there right before qualifying in a position that I can go out comfortably and put the car on the limit, and and obviously hopefully achieve a good result.
Listen, I wanted to ask you this, and I forgot to, but you had the season in DTM with Alex Albon. Is he someone you've tapped into and to understand maybe what it's like being alongside Max for a year, and how helpful were those conversations?
I definitely did. So when we were in DTM, he probably got sick of me asking him all the questions, but I asked him a lot of questions about Red Bull and about what it was like in the team, and how the car was, especially. I know the car was different back then, but honestly the characteristics are probably quite similar, and I've driven the car and I can say that it is aggressive, and it's probably quite hard to drive. So he told me it was all about confidence, and going up against Max, that's what it obviously takes. But in a way, obviously, I'm not just going up against Max, I'm going up against everybody, and as a team, we're trying to achieve the constructors. So I think he'll be somebody that I contact again now, knowing this, because obviously this is all very, very new. Yeah. But I'll be on the phone to Alex for sure in the next few weeks and trying to get some more info.
Okay, listen, Liam Lawson, I don't think I need to wish you a happy Christmas, but I hope it is a
Thank you.
very, very successful new year to you. All the very best.
Thank you very
Especially
much.
since you're an honorary Scot now.
Thank you.
I've just decided that already.